Most people have never heard of it, but it could be the biggest breakthrough in preventive health in decades.
Welcome back to Elevate with Liana and Marisha. Today, we're diving into a subject that affects every single one of us, including you: how we age, and more importantly, how we can do it well. Our special guest today is someone who has dedicated his entire career to health and wellness, and in the most recent years, understanding the science of resilience, longevity, and preventive health at the deepest level.
Dr. Lee Ostler is an author, speaker, and thought leader with over 4 decades of clinical experience in dentistry in the state of Washington, as well as the founding and past president of the American Academy of Oral Systemic Health. In recent years, he has deep dived in the fascinating field of redox biology, a whole new category of cellular health.
He's written 4 groundbreaking books, including his latest, Antifragile, the redox basis of health and anti-aging, which unveils the hidden cellular control systems that help us not just survive, but thrive as we age.
His message? That health span, not just lifespan, is the real goal. Dr. Lee, we are so excited to have you here with us. Welcome to Elevate.
Well, thank you. The two of you are doing a great work around the world and, moving this message into the lives and hearts of many people. So it's a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start here because most of our listeners have probably never heard the word redox before. In simple terms, what is it and why do you call it the newest thing in healthcare, wellness, and anti-aging, Dr. Lee?
Well, that's a great question to start with. The word redox is a fancy contraction of two words called reduction oxidation. And as such, it's really the scientific way of describing how electrons move. And of course, this is a deep rabbit hole. We're not going to go into the depths of that one. Everything is about electrons. There was a great physiologist that once said that life is nothing more than an electron looking for a place to rest. And if you unpack that and realize that an electrical charged electron, which is negatively charged, is seeking to find a positively charged molecule so it can pair up with it, because likes attract and unlikes repel, right? Well, for decades, we've described that very same phenomena as oxidation. And we take antioxidants or vitamins like that to provide spare electrons so that we can balance that out and spare damage to our cells and our proteins and our DNA and so forth, so that we don't get sick. Because when the shape or the contortion of that protein is changed, it alters its function. And if we don't deal with that, it can create inflammation and disease. So this whole redox idea is about how do you manage this movement of electrons? And in fact, the big question is, how does the body use that principle to regulate its own affairs? That's really where we wind up bringing the conversation to, is because if those laws of physics are really what dictate how electrons and protons and proteins and DNA and cell membranes work, then if we understand that at a deeper level, then we can start doing things in the way we eat and sleep and how we move our body, exercise, stress reduction. All of these lifestyle measures matter because they affect that very pattern. And so that simplifies. You said, what's health? Well, again, health is nothing more than the movement of electrons. But it's like, what does that really mean? Well, when you kind of understand that point, then you understand how the cell works. And now you know how to shop in the supermarket. Now you know how to cook. Now you know what to avoid. Now you know the importance of movement and fasting and all these things that tweak those systems so that we can have the health span that we speak about.
Beautiful. And one of the books, I think I've got it right here, is the one of the redox lifestyle that you're mentioning, right? So it all works around this this whole new field of science, which is redox. Now, one of the things that you mentioned and that I was very drawn to, working a lot with energy as a wellness coach and hypnotherapy and working with the mind, body, and soul, was when you mentioned that these redox signaling molecules are literally at the interface between energy and matter, and that they control everything from the cellular communication to renewal and metabolic health, as you've just mentioned. But we're just curious, Dr. Lee, when you discovered that, like when you landed on that information, the what what was that moment for you, that when you understood that this changes everything? Can you walk us through that?
Well, it doesn't change anything because this is the way we were created, made, however you want to get there, because this is the ground state, right? But in terms of understanding it, it takes you straight to the mitochondria, because it's in the mitochondria where that interface occurs. And the point of that is, again, we kind of have to reverse engineer the conversation. If I want health, if that's my end goal, down the road, and then I go, well, what do I have to reverse engineer? I call this in the anti-fragile books, I call this the law of antecedents. It's like, what are the precedents? What's the antecedent steps that I have to go through till I can wind up at a place called health? So tying this together, when matter meets energy, it's at the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. Krebs cycle is a part of that, where the energy is being transferred from the raw food fuel source to oxygen, making the energy that drives my life, keeps me alive, and making redox signaling molecules that now is the environment that tells the DNA what it needs to do to be healthy. That's the secret, because if you understand that, then you can ask a different question. You can say, well, if that's the path, what can I do? What can I do to hack or mimic or manipulate or upregulate that system and do it on purpose rather than just by accident or careless stumbling? Because now I can biohack, which basically means I'm mimicking the state that my body creates when I have a little bit of stress through exercise, dieting, fasting, whatever. I can mimic that, and now I can do anti-aging. I can do it intentfully because now I can target it, right? And that's the whole new age of anti-aging, is being able to figure out these pathways and say, what do we have to do? Because here's probably this is a bottom line summary. If I am healthy, if I become healthy, if I stay healthy, for however you get there, it doesn't matter what your favorite way of lifestyle is, however it is when you get there, when you're healthy, it's because we lived the laws of these antecedent steps on the pathways that activate these processes. And you can get there 30 different ways, maybe 100 different ways. There's a lot of ways, right? And we call that lifestyle. And the reason why lifestyle works, which includes herbs and phytochemicals and fasting and exercise and even some new fancy stuff, in the marketplace with red lights and lasers and photobiostimulation and hyperbaric oxygen, all these things work because they're playing on that one pathway. That's the model. And so you don't have to memorize 1,000 different ways to be healthy. You just say, I need to figure out how to go from matter to make energy so that I can manipulate the pathway so that I can have cellular defense. And that's what creates resilience.
We've been following this science for 5 years now and learning so much every day, thanks to the knowledge that you've brought on this and into the world on these very complex scientific and biological processes. I suppose we can say that's probably why how many books do you have at this point that you've written on this subject, Dr. Lee?
4.5 specifically. There's still one in the oven.
Right. So you have the Redox Matters series, and now you've gone into the antifragile series, right? And so why did you go from Redox to antifragile? Why that jump?
Well, antifragile, I love the word. When I came across it, I thought that's the name of the next book. And because it's about anti-aging, and the whole point is that we want to be resilient. We want to have capacity to resist, to be capable of not being sick. We live in a world of insult and threat. And it's obviously by design, because if that weren't the case, the analogy is a fire department. If the fire department knew exactly every day at 3:45 there would be a fire, the rest of the day they'd be lounging around, not doing anything, not being ready until just prior, right? But the fact that they don't know when the fire is going to happen or what will cause it means they're always on the ready. They are constantly prepared for whatever it is that comes across them. So that leaves them more capacity. It leaves them more resilient, more response able, right? And I think that's a great metaphor, analogy for the body. When the cell, literally, when it's kept guessing, because if you do the same thing all the time, if you eat the same foods, if you do the same exercise, if nothing changes in your routine, which also includes doing nothing, that's the same thing, from day to day, then the cell is like it's practiced at doing nothing. It's not resilient. Someone coughs in your face or gives you an insult physiologically, and all of a sudden you're scrambling because you weren't ramped up, you weren't resilient. And so antifragile speaks that to me.
Oh gosh, Dr. Lee, I think we could be spending hours listening to you. What I love that's coming through, obviously, as a holistic wellness coach, it's not just one thing that helps to, there's not one quick fix. It's a lifestyle. It's integrating different parts that then help us not just survive, but to actually thrive. And it's about ownership, where our health, mental, emotional, physical, is our responsibility. And we love that through your books is about awakening that inner doctor. It's take charge, awaken the doctor within you. So in that moment, I am making those healthy choices. I'm going to choose what air I breathe, what water I drink, what I buy in the supermarkets, where I live, what's the noise around, who are the relationships I'm hanging around. It's about ownership. This is just extraordinary. And obviously it excites me. And that's why I was drawn into this topic of redox science, which obviously is way above my capacity of understanding fully. But so we just understanding now, you've got so much passion, as we've said. You've mentioned that you write books because first it's about you understanding it, but then we get the benefit because we're reading what you filtered through and you deliver it in an easy way for us to understand. We also understand, though, Dr. Lee, that this beautiful, projects that you've been working on, I'm sure along the way, you've come across some challenges, especially with the biggest challenges to getting across this message of redox, a whole new field of science, across to people. What keeps you going? What was your biggest challenge?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is we all share, and we have a cultural conditioned mindset that is very very westernized in its intervention medicine approach. We take pills to solve problems. And what are the problems? Well, they're the symptoms of the underlying, diseases and disorders. And probably the number one class of question I get asked is, will this work for X? Will this work for Y? We're speaking about redox signaling molecules as a supplement. I get the question because I had it too. And I can't say that I still don't think that way because of our conditioning. But this is not about institutionalized intervention. It's not about if I take this, it will suppress a symptom. What is upstream to all of this, understanding that the reason I'm here with my symptoms in the first place is because something didn't work, probably for quite a while, to get to the point where my adaptive and my compensatory mechanisms are beginning to fail me, and I can't cover the deficit anymore. So it expresses as a symptom or a sign or a lab value or something for which, if I'm hurting, or I'm probably going to go to the doctor too, just like everyone else, if my liver starts going south. But it begs the question, well, what happened for 5 years earlier? And just simply saying, well, on Friday, I'm going to start doing all the things that make my liver healthy or kidney healthy or my knee better or whatever, doesn't mean that over the weekend I'm suddenly minus all those underlying issues. And so that mindset is really, that's a bugger, because we all share it, because we're conditioned. You can't, at least in our country, you can't watch TV very long without seeing advertisements telling us that we need a drug for whatever it is, and every time you go to the doctor, they're giving you a drug for whatever it is. Just get rid of the symptom. And very seldom do they go upstream and say, well, what caused it? Well, I can tell you what caused it. it was caused because cells weren't working. And if that's true, then you need to ask a different question about, well, tell me more about that. How do I get the cells working? And so that there's an inertia with that runs against us because we're speaking about a responsive, adaptable environmental system. And this goes hand in hand with the whole DNA thing. It's like for decades, the last 2 or 3 at least, we've had this idea that our disease is driven by our DNA. And if you have a certain gene or whatever, that you're just going to get this, and the cards are stacked against you, whatever. And it's like, with rare exception, I mean, there are some genetically driven diseases, but with rare exception, it's all about the what we call epigenetic. It's the above, like epidermis is the surface, the epi, it's the overlay. So we call it epigenetic. It's the overlay on the DNA. It's what tells the DNA when to express, when to silence, when to do its thing. Otherwise, the DNA is going to stay closed. It won't open up so you can do anything with it. And so again, that's the trick of anti-aging, is to figure out, well, how do I manipulate the environment, the epigenetic environment, so that I can tell the DNA what I want it to do and what I don't want it to do. And so that's kind of the exciting part of this whole anti-fragile, anti-aging, health wellness, is because, again, however I got well or get well, it's because I activated these pathways to tell the DNA how to do its job better. That's the bottom line. And you can have your favorite modality and your favorite whatever it is, whatever works for you. But in the end, if you get better or weller, or may you never know what disease you don't get kind of thing, if you stay healthy, right? It's because you activated these pathways. To me, that's the game changer.
And that's like the most extraordinary shift, right, in all of the science. And when you talk about the mindset also, Dr. Lee, I mean, for me, who I do have a science background, but not in this field of science. And it's been for me also that when you talk about that shift of mindset, and it's like seeing the world in a different upside down fashion, really, from what we've been conditioned to know, and to how to care for ourselves. So I'm really like, it's so true. So how do we educate people more about looking and taking ownership for their health, and how do we show them how they can switch on and off those genetic pathways that you talk about?
Well, you're asking the zillion-dollar question for sure, because you obviously can't force people against their own will, and they're already very steeped in their understanding of allopathic pharmaceutical medical intervention. But again, the broader basis for all this is we eat terribly, we exercise terribly. It's our lifestyle that is set against us, and you don't really have to convince too many people, at least intellectually, that that's the case. Getting them to not eat at McDonald's might be a challenge. I get that, but you just keep at it, and not everybody has ears to hear. They're not all ready or wanting or willing, but when they are, then you can introduce the simple concepts and just say, for example, if we could mimic, or if we could upregulate, or if we could enhance the way the body works and its ability to regulate its health, would that be of interest? And you go, it's either a yes or no, or maybe. There's not too many other options. Or maybe later, let's do it later. But you just kind of keep at it, and again, try to keep it simple. That's my hard part. I'm not the best at keeping it simple.
And we love that about you. Thank you. And then the other thing is often, because we have this biotechnology, this supplement, as you referred to earlier, and some people will say, well, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure it's for me. Or what we often hear is, it sounds too good to be true, right? It sounds too good to be true. So what's the one story or piece of evidence you'd share to make them lean in and want to learn more about this biotechnology, Dr. Lee?
Well, there's kind of two sides to that. One, there's an intellectual side, because you can, we're getting more studies. we're finding our voice, in our ability to be able to explain it. But there's also the personal stories, and sometimes that is discounted, especially amongst professional people that want to see random controlled trials and, peer-reviewed stuff. And whether or not that ever comes or not is really beside the point. It's when my wife had the experience that she had is what got my attention. And then when I had my own experience, it was what got my attention. And then when I saw some of the studies come out and I could corroborate, well, that explains a lot. Now I understand what's behind it. Someone doesn't have to go there. I do, but others don't have to go there in order to validate what they witnessed or experienced. But there's a lot of power in the testimonials, even though many people debunk it. And when it happens, all we're doing, I mean, I don't want to let the air out of anybody's balloon, but all we're really doing is we're putting words to explain what they experience. This is why it's not magic. People say, "Oh, this is kind of like it's wonderful magic." It's saying, no, we're mimicking we're mimicking the rules of how the cells work. And not every company has a product that does that. Some of them suppress symptoms, which is what some herbs do. They're pharmaceutical. That's part of what, that's the foundation of pharmacology, right? But it's the other side, the ability to be active on these in the redox landscape that will environmentally, epigenetically tell the DNA you need to be sharp and on your game, right? That's what we're inviting people to look at. Here's one quick way, I'll just dumb it down to a common, because even this works for me. Everybody's got a thermostat in your home that regulates the condition of the ambient environment. And you set it at a set point, right? And you're happy, you don't even think about it. It's in the background working. When it gets too hot or too cold, something changes in there that flips a switch that tells a machine hidden somewhere in the attic or under the floor in another room to do something to condition or do something with the environment back to where you're at the set point. And when we reach that comfortable homeostatic balance set point, it turns off and it's responsive to the environment. And that's a good metaphor to understand kind of the systematized way the cell is set up to work, is because we live in a world of threat, a world of toxin, a world of oxidation, right? By design, because that's the world we live in, we have to have an ability to be able to recognize it, to sense it, to detect it, and then to be able to respond to it when it happens, and then to turn off when we don't need the response anymore. And so this adaptability, this resilience, this responsiveness is really the key of what this whole redox thing is about. We're just simply manipulating the environment in a way to make the machine work better behind the scenes to keep us in that balanced state as much as possible.
Oh, what a beautiful metaphor there. Thank you. That again, breaking it down in simple words. Well, we obviously are very grateful in our lives as it's come, and we see the blessing. It's a non-negotiable for us. I can speak for Marisha and many others, and that's why we're on this mission, also to share it with the world. And as we know very well, because you were part of it, but Marisha wrote her first book to bring it to educate children, because this is the other intention, right, Marisha? Do you want to share?
Yeah. And so personally, I am so grateful to you, Dr. Lee, with my journey within book, my little activity book to help kids understand their cells and the redox signaling molecules and how they work within the body. You've been such a generous guide for me. And thank you again for the scientific validation of the book, because it really is about showing kids the wonder of how our body works, right? It's just magical. And I really truly believe that if we can get them to understand and to marvel at how their bodies work from within, then if we can lay those foundations early on, then they'll be more inclined, hopefully, to keep that redox lifestyle and that healthy lifestyle throughout their lives, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. You're up against big food, you're up against big media, you're up against big medicine because and we could get into a rabbit hole, with that one
Yeah.
pretty easy. But um, you know,
Let's
your
not.
your kids are going to have their diet drinks. No, I mean, it's like whatever. It's like
But we are on a mission. We're on a mission to change these paradigms, right? Each one of us, I think, in a different way, and many of others that come along with us. So, Dr. Lee, we like to wrap it up a bit just to get to know a bit the man behind the books. And so, a few fire questions, just in one quick word or sentence. One object in your home that describes you.
one object in my home that describes me.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know, probably books. I don't know.
Love it. Is there one book in particular?
No, it's
No.
just, I read several books a month, and so they're just constantly going.
It doesn't come by surprise.
And so Elevate, our podcast is the tagline is feel well, which we've talked about abundantly today. Think deep, which obviously you've demonstrated. And it's also live wide. So, Dr. Lee, what does living wide mean to you?
Well, everything that with that for me is about my family. I'm a grandpa. I'm now a great grandpa, and I'm looking at my children and realizing I'm not going to be here forever. It's like, so what? How can I live so that I'm not about creating a legacy. What I want is influence, and I interpret that as if there is a legacy, it's not about stuff. It's about how they feel when they think about me. And so if I can help them understand, themselves and help them connect with themselves, then I've left something behind. And that's really what drives me.
Oh,
Wow.
that's beautiful. And yes, we do have, let's just share. How many kids, children, and grandchildren do you have, Dr. Lee?
I have 19 grandkids, and I've got 6 great grandkids now.
Whoa.
5 children.
What a
So
legacy.
they're all choice, and the thing is true is that they, just like everybody else, has problems and issues. And the interesting thing about that is I call that emotional hormesis. We didn't talk about hormesis, but we did actually. Hormesis is the science principle of that stress. Because if I have too much stress, it goes the other way and I create inflammation and disease. If I have zero stress, I can't activate the pathways and keep them strong. But if I have the Goldilocks amount, the just right amount, then I can stimulate the cell. And in the world of emotional health and wellness as well, if we didn't, let's say it this way, our family is our clinical material that keeps us sharp. Because if we didn't have that, if everything was rosy all the time, we wouldn't develop resilience. We wouldn't develop capability. We couldn't solve problems. But we tend as humans to look at that as in a negative light, thinking, I don't want problems. I mean, I don't know who gets on their knees at night and prays every night saying, please bless me with a challenge and a problem and give me a sickness. We don't do that. But really, when you understand mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, that hormesis principle of having just enough stress that it keeps me going. I need just enough persecution, just enough irritation to keep me going. Because if I don't, then I don't grow and I go backwards. And so you blend that all together, and that becomes, that's a mission I have for my family, is to help them understand that what you're going through right now is going to make you sharper. It's going to make you stronger.
Beautiful. And again, it's mindset. It's when the challenge isn't seen as an obstacle, but as an opportunity for growth.
It's a stepping stone, not a stumbling block.
Exactly. Beautiful. Well, Dr. Lee, what can we say? We've come to the end of this episode, and we just want to say thank you for saying yes, for joining us, for opening our minds again, and showing us that again, health, we can take charge, and that the future of health isn't hidden in a pill, but it's already within us, waiting just to be switched on. And there are many opportunities now to do that. And if you take nothing else from today's episode, those that are listening, take this, that you are not at the mercy of aging.
You can train your cells to be stronger, more adaptive, and more alive than you ever thought possible, as Dr. Lee has abundantly spoken about today. And if you'd like to learn more about the science and breakthrough technology that comes with it and how it could benefit you and those you care about, reach out to us. We'd love to connect with you with the resources to get started.
And to go and dive deeper, we invite you to go to Dr. Lee's work at redoxmatters.com. There you'll find all his books, loads of videos. It's a wonderful website. Congratulations, Dr. Lee, because it's a resource that we use often. And there you'll find practical steps to start building your own anti-fragile health today.
Dr. Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me with you.
It's been such an honor. We were really, truly looking forward to, to this time with you. Of course, I've had the privilege of meeting you. And as I said earlier, you've been such a gift and support with my own work, writing, much less prolific than you are. But so thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And until next time, lead with soul, live with intention, and always stay elevated.